EEM. I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Ms. Jill Sinclair. Jill.
Thank you so much. Honourable Minister Bartlett, Excellencies, government officials, professors, academics, industry experts, journalists, students and colleagues, welcome and thank you for having me in Jamaica my first time. What I want to do today is actually talk about the issues around the travel industry's workforce. But before we commence, I want a little message to take a moment to offer our thoughts and support for Turkey and Syria with the death toll now over 40,000. And we want to put our thoughts out there for those families who've lost loved ones, for the rescue teams. I also want to call out to Peter, who's here today, who is actually helping people, advising them how to contribute to the funds going out to Turkey. But more importantly today, our afternoon sessions take a bit of a turn from investment to human capital. There's no point in investing without ensuring there's a workforce, the right skills, the right amount of people. And I think one of the things that has come out of this, and this is from being with Minister Bartlett, is that the launch of Project Team is a necessity. The Tourism Employment Enhancement Mandate is about collaboration, it's about changing things. And what we're going to do today, we're going to have two sessions. One centered around the human capital deficit. What are the concerns, what are the real issues, and what are some of the key solutions? But before I move on, congratulations is required. We would like to applaud Minister Bartlett's foresight, unwavering focus on resilience, including the launch of the GTR CMC in 2018. He's been out there doing it for all those years. And that has also been him attending the Resilient Council's event on critical topics, preparedness, crisis management planning and resilience. And I think it's so important to recognise all the effort that's been going on over the years. But today we want to talk about Project Team. And Mr. Bartlett with the co-chair, Dr. Taleb Rifat, have actually been supporting the activities through thought leadership, events, research and publications. And I'd like to say I do have a signed book from Professor Waller, which I received in Nîmes. But the visionary activity of the Resilience Council with the guidance of Minister Bartlett is about making things happen. And I think what we've got to also realise, this is a concerted effort. The creation of Team is about collaboration. So far we have 18 global enterprises working together to establish from the global industry's point of view, what is the problem, what are the problems, how do we quantify it, how do we qualify it, and how do we take the steps to address it. Quite a few of the members are here today and you'll learn more from them throughout the panels. But I think what we've got to understand is where have we come from, and I think this is the context before the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, when you think about tourism and travel accounted for 1 in 4 jobs, 330 million, and generated 10% of the GDP. But we've seen in the pandemic a sharp decline in the jobs. 2020, amazing. We lost 62 million workers. And according to the WTTC, it says the industry did gain some workers back, 1.2 million, a fraction. And with a 4.5 million predicted jobs needed by 2025. At that rate of return, if you look at the statistics, it will take us to 2050 to replace those people. If you look further then at the IBM think tank study, they've projected that we'll need another 8.4 million people by 2025. But the biggest need, and this is the most amazing thing, is that it's the talent in the 18 to 34-year-old group that we need to look for, both in developed and emerging markets. The US, China, India, Indonesia, Brazil and UK are expected to be among the top countries driving job growth from 2023 to 2026. But what is frightening is that there are other issues that have come up as part of this study, issues that trace back way before the pandemic, that are prior and actually sort of system, well I suppose in some ways actually have been there all the time, but no one's really spoken about them. So what team is doing is going to verify what the industry recognises as the problem, but what the impact and the related issues are. And then you start thinking about the list of the things that have come up from the research: equity, flexible working, better opportunities in other sectors, life-work balance, perception of the industry. You know, we've had fantastic things working with students. You know, some of them say, why should I work in tourism? You know, a lot of people left the industry because they've gone and migrated elsewhere. Benefit packages, education and training, along with compensation. One of the things dear to my heart is actually looking at the female worker. And you think over 60% of women work in tourism. And women, funnily enough, have been hit the hardest economically. And the role of gender equality is shouting from the mountaintops. We really need to address this. Equally, changing attitudes and the needs of youth, the primary talent pool, show marked differences, attitudinal differences towards employers. We're not dealing with the likes of me, the baby boomer. We're dealing with different audiences and different needs. And they're very, very keen to know about how they will actually look at an employer, how they look at sustainability, how they will be treated. That the Gen Zs will leave a job more readily than any other group. They also feel so strongly that if they don't like it, they will pass on that message to their networks. And I think now with social media, and particularly other sort of organisations reporting about organisations and how they are in terms of culture, we're faced with an issue here. So that's why team has got to get these insights right. The other thing is, anecdotally and talking to a lot of the industry leaders, they recognise they've got an acute challenge in attracting but also retaining talent. So what team is going to do is going to look at the equation from all perspectives, not only from the employers, it's going to look at the talent base, also dive into those segments that actually could be the potential in the future. And that's your students. If you don't talk to the students, if you don't educate the students, how are we going to drive people into the tourism business? So on that note, what I want to say is that we've done some research. It's part of the journey. It's not complete. It's stage one. But what we want to do is actually tell you what has been said and fed back globally on that. So let me introduce you to Julia Reichel, who is joining us virtually, hopefully, from Munich. Julia, I hope you're here. Julia's got a fascinating career. She started as a pilot, fantastic, and then working on the ground with major carriers, she decided to migrate over to human resource development and research. She's the CEO of Arvensis Research, and she's got some fantastic things to tell us today. Over to Julia. Are you here, Julia?
I'm here. Thank you so much, Jill. Thank you for the fabulous introduction. And yeah, let me say first and foremost that I'm really sorry I'm in Munich and not in Jamaica, needless to say. So thanks for having me here today at this fantastic event. Let me go straight into what it is we're going to talk about. What is a talent shortage? So my team and I encourage our partners and clients to consider the talent part to be part of the supply chain. When you can't have your planes restocked or your hotel rooms cleaned or even your seats and beds sold, it has the same effect on your business as if you didn't have fuel or duvets. It completely disrupts your operation. So if you start to consider your recruitment challenges as part of your supply chain, it only makes sense that you ask, and I mean really ask, the people who have decided not to join you or who have decided to leave you, why they made that choice so that you can be responsive to that. We've heard from other big consulting companies putting out reports about the talent shortage and the forecasts. And in particular, Jill, I was interested in your comment there that the 18 to 34-year-olds are the most needed because we have a data point on that. But nobody else is doing any research to understand the sentiment of this supply side, and that's where Arvensis adds value. If you could go to the next slide. I can't actually see the slides, but I assume we're on the right one. So Aventus provides talent solution primarily to the transportation sector. So we work in the battery value chain, in the e-aviation sector, and as Jill said, my background is in aviation itself. It is only natural that I support this project. So we provide first global executive search services of how to fill technical and leadership positions in these markets. And naturally, we get a lot of insights when we engage with talent pools for roles. So we could be screening and interviewing 100, 120 people, experts for any which role. But that is anecdotal insights, really. It's not data gathering at large scale. So given the talent shortage in this sector, we realized that these anecdotal insights were just too patchy for our clients to make decisions on. So we decided to bring in our market research expertise and apply that to workforce planning and strategy. So by doing that, we gained insights into our clients' target talent pools, and we helped them understand how staff feel about them. And this is via bespoke projects like this here for Team, our own proprietary research, and with benchmarking services. So this then in turn enables data-driven decision-making and the ability to tailor your client, your candidate, and talent acquisition and retention when you suffer from a talent shortage. So this approach of leveraging quantitative and qualitative research is proving to be highly valuable and a really strategic approach in generating insights for business leaders that they have never had before, really knowing where improvements need to be made in order to attract talent. So we undertook this study that Jill referred to help us understand what business leaders, you and your peers, think on the subject. So let me tell you first about the scope. So the slide I'm after right now is the slide with the world map on. Julia. So in this fantastic collaboration facilitated by the TTRC, we've reached out to hundreds of business leaders in all areas of the ecosystem of travel and tourism across the world. And you can see the breakdown here by regions. What was really interesting and telling was the response rates. So we went out and we contacted roughly the same amount of businesses across these regions, and yet you can see that the most responses we got from Europe and South America, and that immediately gives us an insight into where the problem is having traction at a business leader level. So we're moving on to the next slide of
Julia, yeah. Just to interrupt, the slides haven't showed, so I think probably what we need to do is expedite this, and could you go through the top findings and just explain what the top line results are?
Yeah, absolutely, happy to. So, so let me talk you through the top findings. We came out with essentially 8 main insights, 8 key trends. So the first one was, and this baffled me, Jill, we talked about this in the run-up to the project, the IT development, the software development, and the artificial intelligence side. So in the top 3 areas where business leaders told us they had talent challenges, the first one, the top one was sales and reservations. The second one was IT, software development and AI. And the third one was food production. So if you go back to that comment I made earlier about the importance of having the right people and the right amount of people in the operation, it gets to show you straight away in those 3 areas how detrimental it can be when you're understaffed. Western Europe was the region that told us they had the most significant staff challenges, and 34% of leaders told us that they felt that software houses, and I shan't name any names, were proactively going into their in-house development teams and taking talent out, attracting talent out. So 68% of leaders told us that they were currently short-staffed, and let me say that again. 68% of you told us you were currently short-staffed, and I think that is a really staggering amount. Travel and tourism suffers from an image problem. This is what 82% of you told us. Now, given that we are working in this industry and we have chosen to be here, we are all acutely aware that the Gen Zs and the millennials are choosing not to come here. But we don't understand why that is. How can we fix that image problem? 88% of leaders told us they would support a global research project in order to help them and the industry understand that talent sentiment, so that we bring back actionable insights back to the business that HR leaders and business leaders can act on. And then the last statistic I want to share is to Jill's point of the 18 to 34-year-olds being the most needed. We asked you and your peers what was the segment that you felt was causing you the biggest issue, and 62% of you told us that the 25 to 45-year-olds were the most difficult to attract and the most difficult to retain. I'm really happy to share these insights, obviously, through all channels. This is free research that we did as part of the collaboration, because I think it's really important that we share these numbers. But yeah, for the upcoming discussion, I'll hand over to Rajan from the BBC now. You've obviously been meeting him previously. Thank you for listening, and Rajan, I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Julia. It's a shame we couldn't see those results, but I'm sure they will be able to be distributed. Yeah. But I want to, before we go to the panels, I want to bring Edmund Butler up on stage, please, just to give initial reactions to what that survey shows us and how we deal with that. So would you like to take a seat? And there's a microphone there. Well, let's just be plain about this. What do these results tell you?
Well, among other things, is it working? Yes? All right. Right. So these results are indicating essentially what the attitude of the broader public is towards tourism and employment in the tourism sector, and also it gives a sense of what the demography is saying, the age range, who are the ones who are serious about employment with us. The survey also indicates, I think, what level of skill sets that are affected by this, and also the gender distribution. And it's important that we look at all of these, because it's also indicating to us who have left us, yep, and who are not likely to come back to us.
Yep.
But I think also of critical importance is, what do we need to do to get them back? And what do we need also to do to enable the required new workforce to be brought in? So it speaks, I think, to the need for training,
yep,
and upskilling. It needs also to deal with a labor market arrangement. And perhaps it invites us to do that consideration. And in fact, I think Teams was established for exactly that purpose. When the idea was born, and we established the teams that constitute TEAM,
yep,
to start thinking through the process. Or the very base of our consideration was, how do we reimagine the labor market arrangement, create an ecosystem around employment that enables both the employer and the employee to get a balance that provides, one, security on both sides.
Yep.
But certainly, because tourism is known historically to be seasonal employment, the issue of tenure became very, very important. So we have to look at that. Then we have to look at how do you remunerate the workers in tourism? Because as a result of the seasonality that was characterized by the industry, then the issue of remuneration became a big problem because we are so dispersed. And we cover so many areas and so varied of skill sets that we don't have a set pattern as to how we remunerate. So one of the things that I believe this survey also is guiding us towards is to build out a whole system of training and certification so that we can have classification of the workers of the industry and then to remunerate in relation to classification.
I mean, I want to just make clear as well that we understand the true ramifications of this survey, because we can talk about recovery, can't we?
Yes.
Tourism recovery. All we want all day, and about hotels investing and whatever. But unless we got people to actually work in this industry,
It's over.
it's derailed. The whole thing is derailed. And there is a serious issue, which I encountered first just after the pandemic when I was in London, and nobody then was wanting to work in hospitality or tourism.
Right.
I thought then it was a Brexit thing. It was
Absolutely.
in London, a UK thing. No, it's
That's right.
everywhere.
Yes, absolutely.
And that is frightening.
And it's deep. And one has to consider that there are a number of factors that gave rise to the, shall I say, the reluctance. Because I cannot accept that, I think Jill appropriately said 62 million. And there's another survey that said 44 million. But whichever it is, 44 million or 62 million is a huge part of the historic memory system of tourism that is lost. We have to recover that. We see it in terms of the airlines and the return of air activity, aviation activity in so many parts of the world. I went to talk to one of the largest airlines in the world, and I wanted them to fly into the Caribbean and to Jamaica. And they said, yes, we recognize that the Caribbean and Jamaica in particular is a valuable area that we can go in and make some profit. But guess what? Our our aircraft are parked in the desert. Why? The pilots have not come back. Why? The air stewardesses have not come back. This is huge. We go to hotels and we see, in our own case in Jamaica, I think we had a 20% fallout in terms of workers coming back. One hotel had 400 workers that had not returned out of some 1,400 or so. Now, this is very significant because the recovery cannot and will not be complete unless the workers are back. So we have to find a formula to do it. And that's what Teams has been engaged in the last 3 months. Serious work has been done. And I know that you will hear more about it later on when the panel.
So we do have, coming up, 2 panel discussions about the ramifications of that report and how we deal with that shortfall. Edmund, I'm sure you'll be sticking around.
Of course,
for
and
that.
I'll be here for that because it's very important. I happen for all my sins to chair the process, and so I look forward to that. And just to let you know that the work is going on feverishly and well. We intend to move from this conference to ITB to further strengthen the document that we're preparing for a final presentation to the world in May, hopefully in Bosnia-Herzegovina, if my friend Ostra is ready for it. So we look forward to that, and then we'll be able to pass it on to ILO, to UNWTO, to to WTTC and all the major gatekeepers of the world employment situation.
But let's just reiterate, these results, these survey results, are very worrying indeed.
Indeed,
something
they are.
has to be done.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
that's what this whole mandate is seeking to assist. And one point that I want to make before we close, and I know that time is now of essence, is that the intention would very well be to say, here is a mandate. Here is a social contract, if you will. Take it and work with it. Unfortunately, we can't say that. We can offer a guideline. We can offer some ideas. We can offer some thoughts, and we hope, because it is a private sector-driven activity, and I do recognize the diversity within our own employment arrangements, and that we have so many different entities that are part of this this continuum of movement within tourism, that you can't say that this is a glove that fits all hands. So what we have to do is to provide you with a framework and to ask you to draw on it liberally so that we can have a labor market arrangement for tourism that will enhance growth and development and will ensure that the workers who are in tourism feel comfortable, feel wanted, feel as though they belong to an industry that means them well. And hopefully, what will be effaced is the feeling and the emotion that we literally abandoned our workers during the COVID.
Yeah. I get the impression that just like with resilience, Minister Bartlett, just like with resilience, when you first started talking about that some time ago, it became a big campaign, a rolling thing that got bigger and bigger and resulted in this. This is the same type of issue. Yeah. And I hope that this is just the beginning of a journey that will bring us back to that road to recovery.
Absolutely.
Edmund Bartlett, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Minister Bartlett. Thank you, Rajan. Rajan, if we can get you to stay on the stage as you're involved in moderating the next session. Ladies and gentlemen, honourable ministers, there is a convergence now. There's an opportunity to attend a concurrent panel. We're going to continue in this room with the